The CNBC Disruptor 50 list highlighting key players across 27 industries. Companies that are innovating and revolutionizing and disrupting, of course, their respective sectors. Our Julia Borston has fronted this fascinating CNBC initiative. She joins me now, and so does the man behind our #1 disruptor. It's SpaceX, and Elon Musk is here. Welcome to you both.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So SpaceX chosen as the most disruptive company. What is your vision?
Well, for SpaceX, I think what we've done thus far is relatively minor, honestly. I characterize it as evolutionary, whereas what we hope to achieve, and perhaps can encourage the rest of the industry to do, is to achieve full reusability with rocketry. That's never been done. And you can imagine in any mode of transport, if there was not reusability, like aircraft or cars, that there would be very little use of that. So that's the thing that if we're able to achieve it, then I would say that at that point, that's really quite disruptive. And what I'd say we've done thus far is, relative to that, moderately disruptive.
You have a big commercial satellite launch coming up on Friday.
Right.
What's the next big thing in terms of the next horizon for commercial spacecraft?
Well, essentially what I was alluding to a moment ago is to be able to recover the rocket booster and then refly it. That's the revolutionary potential. Now, we've been trying to do that for 12 years and have not succeeded yet. But I feel as though we're finally close to achieving that, and we've got a shot with the next launch of recovering the rocket booster. And if not with this launch, I think a very good chance later this year, and then potentially to refly the booster next year. And this would really mark a significant change in the technology of rocketry.
How are you capitalizing this company? Obviously, the U.S. government has been involved in some of your other initiatives, including the next possible crew carrier to the space station.
Right.
If they don't choose your Dragon V2 model, how much of a problem is that for not only the development of the crew carriers, but some of the other projects, as you mentioned, including the one you've been working on for over a decade?
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, I should acknowledge the critical role that NASA has played in the success of SpaceX. Really, we would not be where we are today without the help of NASA. And it's possible that we may not win the commercial crew contract. We're certainly have done everything we can from our part, and I think we've got a great design solution. If NASA in the end doesn't go with us, because obviously we're competing with big established companies like Boeing, then we'll do our best to continue on our own with our own money.
Do you have enough money to continue on your own?
Well, it would definitely slow us down, but I mean we'd keep going, and we'd be launching commercial satellites, and we have an existing contract to transfer cargo to and from the space station, so we'd keep going, but it would just be a bit slower. In
terms of financing, though, you've said in the past that your time horizon is too long to go public. Is that still the case?
It is. I mean, as you know, you've incredible familiarity with the public markets. The incentive structure tends to be short term, and I mean, you can trace it back to the people that own the stocks, the portfolio managers. They're evaluated on a quarterly basis, or at least an annual basis. So then they push the companies to produce results on a quarterly or annual basis. And with SpaceX, we're trying to develop technology that will ultimately be able to take large numbers of people to Mars. That's really difficult to get portfolio managers to have their. I mean, it's beyond their tenure in owning the stock, so it's difficult to ask them to like that.
Listen, in this country, we have institutions, we have pension funds, we have insurance companies who potentially are structured to invest for a period of 30 years or more.
Yeah, that would certainly work.
That you could look. You probably have more personal capital to be able to go out and transform this industry as anybody out there. Couldn't you go to them and say, look, I want a piece of your capital. This is a completely speculative project.
Right.
Maybe I'm saying, too much there, but it sounds pretty speculative. Why couldn't you do that? Or even go to the public directly? I mean, people have talked about the need for a long-term stock market.
Well, I think people talk about the long-term stock market, and there's certainly some investors that do have a very long-term horizon, but then there's also a bunch that have a short-term horizon, and we see that in the huge fluctuations in the stock price. And I do find it can be a bit of a distraction to employees, and sometimes a mood barometer. And you don't really want people to be happy or sad based on the stock movement. You want them to be working on developing new products and improving the operations of the company. And I think for SpaceX, we really need to get to where things are maybe steady and predictable. Maybe we're close to developing the Mars vehicle, or ideally we've flown it a few times. Then I think going public could make a lot of sense.
How feasible is it to put people on Mars, and how many years and how many millions or billions of dollars will it take?
Well, this is a very difficult thing, obviously. I'm hopeful that the first people could be taken to Mars in 10 to 12 years. I think it's certainly possible for that to occur. And then, but the thing that really matters in the long term is to have a self-sustaining city on Mars, to make life multiplanetary. And that will define a fundamental bifurcation of the future of human civilization. We'll either be a multi-planet species and out there among the stars, or we will be a single-planet species until some eventual extinction event, either natural or man-made.
I wonder what the more difficult challenge is, getting people to Mars or getting a car battery that costs less than $5,000?
Well, I think probably Mars. But, the car battery certainly is hard. And it's, I'm quite optimistic, though, about improvements in the battery price, or the cost of the battery, the fundamental cost. We have daily meetings with our key development partner, Panasonic, on this, and I'm really feeling quite good about being able to produce a compelling mass-market car in about 3 years.
Because there's this company, Finergy, an Israeli company. Perhaps you're familiar with them.
No.
Okay.
But I'm sure maybe they've got something cool. I don't know.
As I understand it, Finergy is testing a electric vehicle with a range of 1,100 miles on technology that's aluminum air technology, has actually been around since the 1960s. There have been issues, I guess, with its durability in the past, but Alcoa is now a partner for them.
Sure.
Could this method supplant or even go a step ahead, a step beyond what Tesla so far has been able to develop?
Well, my response when there's a battery breakthrough announced is always to invite them to send us an example that we can evaluate in our labs, just to sort of verify the claims. What we find is that there are a lot of claims made, but these claims do not survive the light of day. Now that may not be the case in this particular situation. But I can tell you that what the general problem is with batteries that are anything air, which is that they have poor cycle life. So, you can have lithium-air batteries. That's really very high energy density, but you can't recharge them very easily because they have something called dendritic growth, and they basically fall apart after a few charges. So you'd have to have a new battery quite frequently.
Now, your move to open up Tesla's patents to anyone was really unusual. It was very disruptive. But what's the long-term play here in terms of the types of services or technology Tesla could sell to make this all worthwhile?
Well, we're really not. There's no grand plan with the sort of the open sourcing of the patents. We just thought it would be helpful to the industry, and people could use them or not use them. And for a while there, we thought, we have to have these patents because the big car companies will just copy our stuff and then use their scale to overwhelm us, and then we'll be dead. So what we found is that actually the big car companies are not going towards electric cars very, very swiftly, or at all in some cases. So we thought, well, there's no point in having these patents because the patents are not the thing stopping them from going. And maybe if we open source the patents, they will be more inclined to make electric cars. That seems like a good thing to do. And yeah.
What is the point of having electric cars, of having electric vehicles? In other words, is it from an environmental sustainability point of view? Is it a reduction of traditional oil and other fossil fuels? And I ask because more and more people are starting to say, look, if it takes the equivalent of lots of coal to power or to fire these vehicles, then how is that in our public interest? So I'm just curious what you think the point of having electric vehicles is.
Right. Well, I'm glad you asked that question because today we announced at Solar City that we're acquiring a company, Sliva, which has got great solar panel technology. We think there's a potential breakthrough with high-efficiency, low-cost solar panels that can generate sustainable electricity. And then you combine this sort of sustainable electricity generation with electric cars, and you have an overall system that works and can scale to worldwide capability. Because you're right, it wouldn't help to just solve one side of the question, to have electric cars that are then powered by coal. So we've got to have sustainable power generation and sustainable power consumption.
And one of the other startups on the Disruptor 50 list is about charging stations, ChargePoint. And I know that you're in talks to collaborate with your rivals, Nissan and BMW, on these charging stations. What is the next frontier in terms of helping build out the infrastructure so it's really worthwhile for more people to build electric cars as well as buy them?
Well, yeah, so the reason we built out the supercharger network is because there was no high-speed charging available. So that was because you have to match the convenience of a gasoline car in order for people to buy an electric car. They don't want to feel as though their freedom is curtailed in buying an electric car. They want to be able to do a cross-country trip, visit friends and family, go on vacation, these kind of things. But there was no charge system that could do that. So we developed the supercharger technology, and we're more than happy to have other manufacturers use it. And we've offered this to BMW and to Daimler and Toyota and others. And really the only requirements are it's got to be able to, the car has to be able to take the power level of the supercharger, because otherwise if it only takes if it takes a small amount of power, it's going to hog the spot. So it's just got to be able to take the power level, and then they've got to proportionately share the costs of the system. That's all.
Now, you're so encouraging of your competitors in the Tesla and the electric car space, but it seems like a slightly different situation when it comes to SpaceX. I mean, I know you've expressed frustration about the fact that Boeing and Lockheed's joint venture has a virtual monopoly on the defense satellite launches.
Yeah.
What are you going to do to break that monopoly, and how do you deal with those competitors?
Well, I mean, I guess the thing we're mad about there is that there was this huge block of national security launches that were not open to competition. So sometimes people think, well, we're mad because we didn't win, but actually we're just mad because we never even got the opportunity to compete. That doesn't seem right. You know, it seems that the law of the land is that you should compete these things, and so that's the nature of our protest, is that you know, launches should be competed, and then whatever the best deal is for the American taxpayer, that's what should win.
We want to talk a little bit about some of your big ideas. But before we do, though, you mentioned the deal that Solar City has just made today, buying Solevo.
Solevo, yeah.
And this one's interesting for a couple of reasons. You know, if you talk about solar technology today, solar panel manufacturing, there's a lot of oversupply in the industry. Herb Greenberg earlier today was saying, you know, we still need consolidation. We still need fewer of these panels made. And others say it's still too expensive, so that it still might cost 25 grand or something for a household on top of the cost of actually installing these panels to use them. How is this acquisition going to change the game, going to make it cheaper? And or is that the point, first of all? And how much cheaper? And how long until households and cars are genuinely running on solar technology in this country?
Well, we certainly have a long way to go before solar is any huge percentage of our electricity generation. So the way we see it at Solar City is that although there's sort of an oversupply of a particular type of panel, the low efficiency or moderate efficiency panels today, what there is not enough of are the high efficiency panels, and as we look further further out, even just 2 or 3 years out, we actually see there being insufficient capacity for solar panels, which is in part caused by the oversupply of the sort of low efficiency panels today, which prevents people from then investing in the future. So it's a sort of a weird boom and bust. So it's sort of like in the bust times, you have to invest in order for the boom times to work out and not be supply constrained 2 or 3 years from. So we're just trying to think a few moves ahead here, and also to make sure that the high efficiency panels are made in high volume. I mean, at the risk of sort of getting into sort of slightly complicated situation, the higher efficiency panels allow you to have a smaller footprint of the solar panels. So you need fewer panels in order to generate the same amount of electricity. And the labor costs and the installation costs and the wiring and all that are proportionate to the surface area. So in order to lower the total system cost, it's very important to have high efficiency panels.
Now, I have to ask you about a company that you invested in. As you said, you make almost no investments outside of SpaceX.
Yeah, I'm not really an investor.
You're not an investor.
Right. I don't own any public securities apart from SolarCity and Tesla.
That's amazing. But you did just invest in a company called Vicarious Artificial Intelligence. What is this company?
Right. I was also an investor in DeepMind before Google acquired it, and Vicarious. Mostly, I sort of want to. It's not from the standpoint of actually trying to make any investment return. It's really. I'd like to just keep an eye on what's going on with artificial intelligence. I think there's potentially a dangerous outcome there, and we need to.
Dangerous.
Potentially, yes.
So?
I mean, there's been movies about this, like Terminator.
Yes, but movies are. Even if that's the case, what do you do about it? I mean, what dangers do you see that you can actually do something about?
I don't know.
Well, why did you invest in Vicarious? What exactly does Vicarious do? What do you see it doing down the line?
Well, I mean, the Vicarious refers to it as recursive cortical networks, essentially emulating the human brain. Yeah, so I think, yeah.
So you want to make sure that technology is used for good and not Terminator-like evil?
Yeah. I mean, if in the movie Terminator, they didn't create AI they didn't expect, some sort of Terminator-like outcome. It's sort of, like that Monty Python thing. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. It's just like, but you got to be careful. So you want to make sure that.
But here's the irony. I mean, the man who's responsible for some of the most advanced technology in this country is worried about the advances in technology that you're aware of. I mean, I guess that's why I keep asking, what can you do? In other words, this stuff is almost inexorable, isn't it? How, if you see that there's these brain-like developments out there, can you really do anything to stop it?
I don't know.
Well, what should AI be used for? What's its best value?
I don't know. But there's some scary outcomes, and we should try to make sure that the outcomes are good and not bad. Yeah.
Or escape to Mars if there's no other option.
The AI will chase us there pretty quickly.
Oh, God. So what else is in the Elon Musk notebook? What's the latest with the Hyperloop?
I understand that there are some companies that are forming to try to make the Hyperloop happen, and I encourage them. I think that's great. I'm super focused on Tesla and SpaceX, and to a small amount on SolarCity, so that basically completely uses up my brain. And then, but I hope something happens with the Hyperloop. And if nothing happens with it, then I'll probably do something down the road and try to make it happen.
And you said once you get Tesla to a certain point with an affordable car on the market, you're going to be ready for your next thing. What is the next thing?
Well, no, I'm always going to be involved with Tesla. Forever. The only question is whether I will be CEO forever, or at least until I die. I'm committed to be CEO of Tesla through volume production of the mass market vehicle, but I will continue to be involved with Tesla as far into the future as I can possibly imagine. The only question is whether I will remain as CEO, say, 5 years from now. That's the only question.
As the ultimate disruptor, when you look at all the technologies out there, you've talked a little about artificial intelligence. What else do you think is really disruptive to the status quo right now?
Well, rewriting human genetics, that would be quite disruptive.
And are there any companies you would point to that you think are doing a good job or leading the charge?
I don't know much about that arena, except that if you ask would be a very disruptive thing, I think that would be very disruptive. At this point, human lifespan is mostly about old age. It's not about cancer or anything else. It's like if you cure cancer, I think like the average life expectancy would increase from like 2 years. You go from like 80 to 82 or something like that. It's we just have a genetic lifespan. It's kind of like say if you take like a fruit fly and you gave it the best exercise and diet possible and like the perfect life, it's still maybe it'll live like 4 weeks instead of 3 weeks. That genetics just drives a lot of these things. So. If for something to be truly disruptive on that front, you'd want to do something on genetics. But like I said, I don't have much involvement there, or any involvement really.
Now, there was a company that sequenced DNA, 23andMe, that came up against some major government regulation, which in effect shut down its business. You've come against some government regulation with your Tesla dealerships in New Jersey. What's your perspective on the role the government should play in innovation?
Well, I think the government's sort of like the referee. I guess the referee and the rule maker. You know, that's really the role of the government. I mean, generally the government shouldn't get on the field unless it really has to. But I do think there's a role for government to make sure that the right thing is happening. In the case of New Jersey, of course, sometimes that doesn't happen. But I should point out that the New Jersey legislature has recently passed a law to allow Tesla sales in New York, at least on the House side, and we're waiting to see what happens on the Senate side.
Do you expect that to move forward? Governor Christie signed this into law?
I hope so. I hope so. It's certainly, given that it was unanimously approved by the New Jersey House, I think there were two people weren't there and one abstained. So it was essentially unanimous. So if the New Jersey House is saying it's unanimous, then I would assume the governor would ultimately sign that law.
And have you made up your mind on the Gigafactory yet?
No, not yet. One thing I should say about the Gigafactory is that I think, like a lot of people think, like, oh, we're just trying to put the screws to various states to get the most incentive, as much incentives as possible. It does, I guess it does, but that's not our goal. Really, our main concern is to make sure that the Gigafactory, the giant battery factory, is ready when the third generation car is ready. Because if we go and design the car and we tool up to produce the rest of the car, which is also a big expense, but then there are no batteries to supply it, it would be a terrible outcome for Tesla. I mean, we might fail as a company. So that has to be paramount in our decision making. So we're actually going to be moving forward a preliminary phase with at least 2, maybe 3 locations, all with an eye towards completing it in time for when the rest of the car is ready. That's really what it's all about.
Then Elon, well, thank you for your thoughts on such a wide range of issues this